Hi everyone, so today we are going to be talking about how we can classify and represent solid figures. So our question is, how can we classify a polyhedron? So first, a polyhedron is a three-dimensional solid figure made of flat polygon-shaped surfaces called faces. So this is a polyhedron, and what this is saying is it's a three-dimensional and it is made up of flat polygon-shaped surfaces called faces. The line segment where two faces intersect is called an edge. So the line segment where they intersect. And then the point where several edges meet is called a vertex. So where edges meet, these are called vertexes. So in a polyhedron, the top and the bottom are called bases. So this shape up here is a base, and this shape down below are bases. So top and bottom are bases. And then the other polygon-shaped surfaces we know are called faces. So we have four faces. Our line segments, sorry, that's kind of pricey. Let me pick a different color. Our line segments we just read are called edges. So these are all edges. I'm not going to draw all of them, but those are all edges. And then where the edges meet are called vertexes. So where all of those edges meet, those are all vertexes. So these are all words that we are going to see when we're talking about polyhedrons. So there's two types of solids I want to talk about today, prisms and pyramids. So prisms have polygonal faces. So remember our faces, 1, 2, there's one in the back, 3, and then another one. I'm going to use a different color. Let's see, purple, and one back here, which is 4. So you have polygonal faces, and they have two identical parallel bases. So remember, our bases are the top and the bottom. And in prisms, they're identical. So they're the same shape and they're parallel, meaning they will never intersect with each other. And we name prisms based off of what those shapes are. So on this left side, we can see that our bases here are both rectangles. So we would call this prism a rectangular prism. Now on the right, we can see that our bases are triangles. So we would title this prism as a triangular prism. So again, the bases are going to be identical, they're going to be the same, and they're going to be parallel, and that's how we name our prisms. Now with pyramids, the base of a pyramid is the face opposite the vertex. So the base is opposite of the vertex. So in this case, there's not a top and the bottom, there's just the base. And it's opposite of where the vertex is. So pyramids only have one base, there's no top, like I just said. And pyramids are also named by the shape of their bases. And then all the other faces are going to be triangular. So whenever you see a pyramid, it's going to be made up of triangles as the faces. All of the faces are going to be triangles, as we can see here. All of these faces are triangles. The only different face would be the base, if it is a different shape. So on the left-hand side, our base here is a square or a rectangle. So we're going to call this, keep doing that, we're going to call this a square pyramid. And then on the right-hand side, our base is a triangle, so we're going to call this a triangular pyramid. So it really just depends on the shape of the base, and that's how you can title them. And same thing that we talked about before, all of our prisms and pyramids still have edges and vertexes. So we still have edges All of these are edges, and then we also have vertexes, so where they meet. So if you ever had to count vertexes or edges, if I asked you to, the vertexes are where the edges meet, and the edges are the line segments themselves. All right, so let's try one on our own. What do you guys think, knowing about what we just talked about? I want you to name this solid figure. What would the name of this be? So number one, to identify this, the first thing I notice is that there's only one base, and the top is a vertex. All of the sides, all the other faces are triangles, so I know this is going to be a pyramid because there's only one base and all of the other faces are triangles. So I know it's a pyramid. And if I'm looking at the base is a square, so I'm going to call this a square pyramid. Now, the other way that we can see solids is if we call this a net. When we decompose or break down a prism or a pyramid, and we put it on a plane figure. So a net is a plane figure pattern, which when folded makes a solid. So basically what they did here is they took this prism, this rectangular prism, and they unfolded it onto a grid plane so that we could see all of the sides easier. So the net shows all of the identical rectangular faces. It shows all of our sides. So we can see what our right and left faces would look like. We can see our top and bottom, and we can see our front and our back. So if you were to unfold a prism, this is what it would look like. And you can also, looking at this, you can label or name or classify this solid figure. So we know that since there is a top and a bottom, it's going to be a prism. It's not going to be a pyramid. And we know the top and the bottom, these are our base. We know it's a rectangle, so we can call this a rectangular prism. So that's how you can use a net to classify the shape without having to fold it and draw it together. So this is just another example of a net. So if this is the shape that it is, and if I unfolded it onto a plane, a grid plane, this is what it would look like. You can see all of our faces, and you can see our top and our bottom as well. Now, if I went to name this again, I have more than one base. I have a top and a bottom here. So I know it's going to be a prism. And I know that my base or my top and bottom are going to be a rectangle. So again, it's just going to be a rectangular, I'm going to abbreviate here, rectangular prism. So last, I want you guys, here's our net. And I want you guys to name this solid figure using the net. So what would the name here be? So let's break this down. So the shape of the faces, I know my faces are the shapes that are not the base. So I know the shape of my faces are triangles. And since I know that all of my faces are triangles and there's only one base, I know it's going to be a pyramid. And then what is the shape of my base? My base is also a triangle. So I have a triangular pyramid. So that's how you can use a net to be able to classify the solid as well. And sometimes when it's split down into a net, it's easier to count the vertexes and the edges and to see them all. So here it's kind of easier to identify all of the edges. And it's also kind of easier to also then see where all of the vertexes are. So that is one benefit of using a net instead of using the actual folded up pyramid shape. So So that is it for today's lesson. You guys know how to reach us if you need help, and I hope you guys are all doing